Welcome, pool guys and gals, to the Let's Talk About Pools podcast, where your host, Lauren Broom, will take a splash into many topics in the pool industry to educate all aquatic professionals. Listen in, and you just might be surprised what you'll learn. So let's jump right in.
Hello, and welcome today to the Let's Talk About Pools podcast, where we're going to be talking in episode 19 about Sutro, a unique way to test your water using fun technology today. So it's going to be an exciting episode, just talking about technology, testing water chemistry, and all kinds of things. So welcome our special guests, Ravi Kurani and Jim Conti with Sutro. And I want to thank Sutro for being the main podcast sponsor today for Let's Talk About Pools, along with our other podcast sponsor, Wave Drowning Detection Systems. So please listen in to their ads and their information as well in case you're interested in Sutro and also in technology that helps with drowning prevention. Thank you so much to my sponsors and to my continued listeners of the Let's Talk About Pools podcast. So let's jump right in, guys. Introducing Sutro, the award-winning pool monitor. Your pool is connected to the cloud. The first floating digital test kit. The Sutro app will tell you exactly what chemicals to add and when. Accurate reading that's empowered by the Lamont reagent cartridges. The most innovative smart pool maintenance system. Pool water maintenance forever changed. Finally, a smart device that keeps your pool chemicals balanced. Let's learn about Sutro.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk About Pools today. And on my episode today, I have Ravi Kurani, founder of Sutro, and Jim Conti, who's head of sales for Sutro. Welcome, guys. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good. Lauren. Thank you for having us on the show.
I'm excited to have you guys on here. When Jim contacted me about this product in the pool industry, it sounded really neat, and I wanted to have you guys on the podcast so that people know what's out there and go, oh, same thing like me. This is really cool. And we want to hear about how it all works. But first, let's get a little intro about Sutro and how it started and just a little history.
Yeah. So I'm Ravi, CEO and co-founder of Sutro. Sutro actually, picture Los Angeles, sunny skies, ton of pools out there, right? So my dad used to have a chain of pool and spa supply stores. And so I grew up testing water, the Taylor test kit, right? Installing pumps, doing acid washes, running routes. I've done it all through high school, even in elementary school. I was running the cash register before I could even stand and actually reach the cash register. And so, the idea kind of came about of like, hey, look, people came into the pool store and they needed this help, and we didn't really know what was going on in their pools. And so we wanted to create something that basically took my dad's pool store and packaged it into a little robot that you could basically keep inside of your pool that floated there. And then you had a nice little app that told you exactly, what you needed when you needed it, and kind of give that experience to somebody, right? And after we built that robot and basically put it inside of people's pools, we realized that the data that this thing brought actually leverages and helps the entire industry, including pool stores like my dad's or the service routes that I used to run, because with that information, you're actually smarter and better equipped going out into the market than you were before.
Wow. That sounds really cool, taking what you did in the pool store and packaging it and using the technology today that we have. You would think that, why didn't this get done anytime sooner? But maybe it's the size or something like that. We're able to get things smaller and smaller and smaller, that it becomes economical and that kind of thing for the homeowner to be able to purchase, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think there's kind of three major obvious intersecting trends that actually allowed us to do that today. The first is decreasing chip costs, right? So like iPhone, the Android, you can just make electronics at a lot more cheaper now, right? So that's one trend. The second is that people are getting more and more used to having smart things in their home, right? They have the Google Home, they have a Chromecast, they have the August smart lock, they have a Nest thermostat that controls their temperature. And then the third piece is that the pool industry just hasn't been hit with innovation the way that the rest of the inside of the house has. And so those three very obvious trends basically drove straight to the center of what Sutro is today.
So Sutra Smart Monitor, tell me about that and kind of how it works.
Yeah, it's super, super simple. So this, if you're looking on YouTube, you'll see that I'm holding up a box here, but this is the box that the Sutro gets shipped in. And inside here, I'll just open it up. Inside there is basically the Sutro monitor that's up at the top over here. And there's three boxes. One is the accessories box, which has the batteries and the charging cable. This middle box over here is the hub, which actually connects to the monitor to make sure that we can get the information from the floating monitor up into the cloud so it hits your phone. And the third is the Sutro test cartridge, which I'll talk about in a second. But if you zoom into the actual monitor over here, which I've pulled out for everybody that's not looking at the YouTube video, this thing's about the size of your arm. And we did this on purpose because you want to make sure if you're taking a test of the water that it actually has between 12 to 16 inches of depth, so we can take the actual water sample at the right height. When you open it up, you just twist it from the top right over here. And as soon as you pull up, it kind of looks like this. We're actually big Back to the Future fans, so this is actually inspired from the flux capacitor. If you remember that scene when actually Doc pulls it out the back of the car. And on one side over here, we have the battery. And on the other side, we have this Sutro test cartridge. And the test cartridge just has these little clips. It pops in and it pops out. And the magic of what's in this test cartridge, which is different than anything else that's on the market. So if you're looking at ORP technology, any sort of things with little glass bulbs, there's the glass bulb side of the world, which I'm going to put in a corner. And then you have Sutro. And the reason that Sutro is different is because we actually use real reagents. So if you remember, my background was in the pool store, right? And what you use in pool stores, what you use as pool service technicians, what you use, Lauren, working at a commercial facility are reagents. You use DPD, you use phenol red, you use sulfuric acid to measure your alkalinity. So we said, why change the paradigm? Why are we going to build something else with all that garbage ORP stuff? So we literally took reagents and we put them inside here. And if you double click into this cartridge, what you'll see here is a technology that's called Microfluidics. Micro for super, super small, and fluidics for fluids. So if you recall going to the doctor's office, you take a little prick of blood and they can do so much analysis with that little small drop of blood. That's microfluidics. So we've taken the technology from the medical industry and we've shoved it inside of this little cartridge that floats in this monitor. So we're actually doing the same thing you do when you measure your pool chemistry with phenol red or DPD, but 1/50th of the smallest size. And so if you look over here, if you're looking at the YouTube video, you'll see that little window there. That window is actually proportional to the size of your test kit. You've taken a test kit and made it that small. That's how the Sutro works.
Wow, that is so cool. That is very neat how that works. It amazes me how much technology there is. And you're right, trying to bring this technology into the pool industry and make people aware that it's there. And that's exactly why I wanted you guys to be on the podcast episode today, was so that we could get this out there and these pool companies would, at least on the residential side, know that it's there and be able to use that to assist them in their jobs, even if it is homeowners as well. But for pool companies that are doing residential, only go out usually once a week, this could actually give them water monitoring all the time data so that they know what's going on with their pool and make better decisions even on how they're going to maintain water chemistry from 1 week to the next. Really cool. That was a really good way of explaining it too. I think everybody's going to be able to visualize what you were talking about. So
I think you actually raised a really interesting point, Lauren, of pool service technicians being able to use this for their residential pools. One of the differentiating ways that we've built Sutro is on the entire application side, right? So when you have this on your iPhone or your Android, we don't lock you into using a particular type of chemical. So if you're a pool service route that uses, if you use BioGuard, if you're a potential Segura dealer, we work with all of them. Honestly, all you have to do is as easy as the pool service retailer or the actual service technician, just scanning the barcodes. And our database of all the chemicals on the Sutro database will map against your chemicals that you use. So you're better equipped in using those chemicals for your actual pool. So that's the other side of what we built as well.
Wow.
And Lauren, you bring up a good point. I mean, the service companies now, unless they get in their truck, drive, get to a site, go in the backyard and run a test kit, they really don't have any idea of what they're walking into. And a lot of things, and especially markets where weather can affect water chemistry overnight, you're talking about a pool that sits for a week between visits. And in between that is weather and potential pool parties and other bather loads that can impact water chemistry very quickly. And they have the ability now to go in and remotely access and see all the pools under their management that have Sutros floating in them and be able to adjust their routes in order to take advantage of which pools need their attention now and which ones can wait. So if I have a pool that I'm scheduled not to be to on Wednesday and I look at it on Sunday and see that they had a pool party, if I don't get there until Wednesday, I have to go in, shock it, clean it, change the filter mediums, and spend money and resources that I wouldn't have to spend if I had got to that pool on Monday. In addition, they also then have to explain to that customer why I have it under service. Why is my pool not for the level that I'm paying for? So they can not only create efficiencies, but make their pool service better to the customers because they have the ability to use technology now to be proactive and make sure they have the right chemicals on their truck. They can send junior guys out to do the water chemistry while they keep their senior guys into the projects like the filters and the repairs and all the other products that are obviously more profitable for most of the service companies.
And my brain's working here as we're talking, and previous people I've interviewed, it's almost like it would be cool on this topic that we're talking about if your Sutro integrated with like a pool route management software like Skimmer, so that because it's pool route management, and if there was an integration where Sutro gave them that alert, they know that this pool on the route is not good. They know the chemistry because it's testing it, giving it back to their phone. There was a connect between the two. They could actually manage their route in such a way that
absolutely
these are the pools on Skimmer that are being alerted through the integration with Sutro that we need to go here first. And they could it allows them to rearrange their route that day based on the pools that need the work first, because
absolutely
whatever
right.
happened, some of the pools, maybe they hardly get used. There's not an alert, but this pool, they had a big pool party that weekend. So, and they don't have a party every weekend. So now they pop up at the top of the list. I almost think that would be a cool integration to do. I think that really kind of would be a cool thing because that even happened a lot with when I worked at the health department previously, where techs didn't know what was going on, so they show up on their standard route and they don't know if this pool, maybe they should have gone there first at 7 a.m. in the morning and rearrange the route based on the one. And then they'd beat the health department there before they close it, because they don't normally go out at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're in the office and then they get out, and they're 8 to 5ers usually. So, you'd be able to rearrange a route based on the importance of whatever the chlorine level was or the pH level was. Do you guys agree?
Yeah. And I think you completely hit the nail on the head with this idea. I mean, we should have you be our spokesperson, Lauren. You should come on and join the Sutro team. But
I don't know. I'm thinking Skimmer and Sutro need to
totally
together.
Skimmer and Sutro. I mean,
I think that they're a big pool route management type software, and they are trying to do a lot of neat integrations. Yeah. I don't know. You might.
We know those guys very well. Yeah.
That might be a good way to integrate the two and marry them together so that it would make even better route management than just trying to do it geographically. You can have geographic routes, but now you're prioritizing what's on the route.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I think you can even take that, one step further, and you can say, if Sutro is the testing engine, right? If we understand testing data from swimming pools, where else can you plug that in, right? Just as you would plug in the data into Skimmer to help your pool routes be better managed, can you plug that into pool stores to help, pool stores manage their customer flow better so they can better understand what customers need, what chemicals before they come into the store? Can you work with, commercial facilities so people like your techs that didn't know what they were doing now know what they should be doing, right? That all of those questions can now be answered if you have proper testing. And so, and proper autonomous testing, right? That's the big question here. And so, I think Skimmer is the tip of the iceberg. If you start to unpack that entire conversation, you can go deeper and deeper and figure out how many other places can we integrate with. And that's Sutro's goal, right? We want to be what they call in software land as an API first company, right? We want to be the center of testing to be able to integrate with everybody across the board. Our goal is not to put anybody out of business. We don't want to take over your chemical revenues. We're not here to replace pool service technicians. We want to be the technology that the industry uses to leverage to make everybody smarter, make everybody better, make everybody stronger, make everybody more money, right? Well, that's the goal of what we're trying to do.
And if you can manage your route in such a way, or even the customers from the pool store, you're going to have happier customers, which brings them in more revenue. They lose less customers because they have information coming in. Oh, we've got a zero chlorine on this pool. We need to go out there. Our technician needs to go out there, even though they're not scheduled for 2 days. Let's send them out there now. It allows them to not get that phone call from a homeowner saying my pool is green in between the weekly visits and stuff. I think that the information is there to help. You're not trying to replace, you're just trying to give more information so the pool companies can do a better job because they have more information. And the nice thing is they don't have to physically drive there. So it's going to save them on gas as gas prices are going up this year as well.
Exactly.
So it's taking technology. Technology is out there. We need to use it, and people need to work together in the industry. And I think that the integrations can happen as long as the industry is open to and not being, oh, we got to be competitive. Or, oh, that's a great idea, but now I'm a big company. I'm going to go make my own so I can compete against this other company. Why don't we just try to take what somebody's already got instead of reinventing the wheel over here and try to, move forward with it and use it positively?
Hey guys, sorry for the short intermission. We'll be back shortly. But I want to say thank you to Wave Drowning Detection Systems for being a co-sponsor of the Let's Talk About Pools podcast today. Thank you so much. And I want you guys to listen in to their technology that can help prevent drowning, one of those many layers of protection for drowning prevention. Thank you, Wave Detection Systems.
Out in the wild, when the little ones swim, the smarter parents watch them carefully. Back home, the smarter parents also use Wave. Safer swimming starts here.
So what's the big deal with ORP, and why is it a bad metric for measuring chlorine? Because I know there's a lot of ORP controllers out there, seen them down here in Florida a lot. There's so many different companies that make them. So what's the big deal with that compared to Sutro?
So let me actually ask that question back to you, Lauren. When you were working in the commercial pool world, right? When you look at that NSF 50 standard, how do you measure your pool chemistry, and what is the go-to method that the government requires that you use?
ppm
ppm
on a test kit that uses usually DPD.
And do you know why that is? I mean, I know you kind of also helped write a few of those things, but do you know why that is for the Model Aquatic Health Code?
I believe because they want to make sure that we're not using test kits that utilize orthotylidine, because it's a known carcinogen. and it tests total chlorine instead of free
Exactly.
chlorine and ppm.
Yep. And so if you have that ppm metric and somebody gives you a binary number like 650 millivolts, right, which is the ORP equivalent of standardized or not, I guess first question is, are you even allowed to use ORP in a commercial setting, to solely use ORP as a metric?
No.
Exactly.
Most commercial pool codes will require a certain millivolt reading, but you have to have a specific ppm of chlorine concentration as well.
Exactly. And therein lies the truth, right? Is if you go to the root cause of that line that you just said of, yeah, you can have the ORP. The ORP gives you a great pulse. However, we still need that backbone of ppm. We still need you to do a free chlorine measurement. And so there's a reason that the scientists at the EPA wrote the actual NSF 50 that way, right? And that's to make sure that you're using the right measurement. You're using ppm and DPD in true parts per million chlorine to measure your water chemistry. And so it's honestly easy to build with ORP. I mean, those sensors are out there. You can buy one from Amazon today. I could actually release the files for you to put on a Wi-Fi chip on top, put it around a waterproofing, and then get some data to the cloud, right? You can build that in the course of a weekend if you had a developer anywhere in the world do that. The real magic comes of what this actual NSF 50 says is we need to use ppm to measure chlorine. And so what we did was we went back to where the truth lies. We went back to the root of where the actual standard is. And we said, screw ORP, right? Let's go back to what the guys tell us we should be using, which is ppm. And let's build an entire system around that. And what we ended up finding actually is when you start automating reagent chemistry, like we're using phenol red to measure pH, we use DPD to measure the chlorine. What we're able to do is we're able to build a cassette of tapes, a cassette of tests that we can actually expand. So if you take a look at any sort of Taylor's reagent, any sort of Lamont reagent, we can very easily actually implement a cyanuric acid test. We can implement a total chlorine test. We can implement a metals test, because all of these guys have reagents, and we figured out a way to make reagents really, really small, look at the colors, and actually do that robotic test inside the water. So to kind of, answer the crux of your question of what's wrong with ORP, why do we use ppm? It's because the regulation tells us we should, right? And we don't want to settle for inferior technology. We don't want to settle for trash that basically gives you some weird baseline reading when the regulation itself says that you need to use ppm. So we went straight to the ppm. We used what the regulation says, and we want to be able to do that from a commercial setting, but more importantly, also give that information to the homeowner, because we feel like they should also be equipped with the right information and not some, Barney sort of data point that's either plus or minus. And so that's why we've chosen to build the system in this particular way.
And the Sutro, what can it test? What are the possibilities? And is it a photometer test, or is it more like is it a photometer test, or is it?
Yeah. The Sutro is a robotic. You can actually think of it as a floating laboratory. It literally in that cartridge has reagents, and the same way that you would drop 5 drops of reagents, it literally has a small little syringe that Jim's actually showing it to you on the screen over there. So if you look at that, you'll see that inside of that cartridge, there's the reagents, there's syringes. We're actually using Lamont reagents inside of that cartridge to dose those reagents into the flow cell at the top. And then we use spectroscopy and photometry to truly measure the color that any photometer would. All of that data actually gets sent to the cloud, and the cloud has machine learning to figure out what's going on with the water. That gets all dumped into a really simple app that tells you your pH is high, your chlorine's low, do XYZ, and not even XYZ, put in this particular BioGuard chemical that you've scanned, or Segura chemical, or HTH chemical, whatever it might be. You can scan any of those chemicals in, and we'll tell you what to put into your pool and when to put it in.
So it does dosage as well.
Yes.
From the app.
From the app, yes.
The app does the dosage based on the readings that you're getting from the photometer that is inside Sutro, that's giving the readings back to the app.
Yep,
that's pretty
that's
cool.
100% correct.
And what tests can it do?
So it currently can do a pH, a free chlorine, and an alkalinity, as well as temperature. And the goal for the next 2 or 3 years is to actually build out that cassette. The next few tests that we'd like to launch is a salt test. We want to do a total chlorine test. We eventually want to get to a cyanuric acid test, and also potentially a metals test as well.
Are you going to have one that'll be able to do calcium hardness?
Yes, we can. We have the calcium hardness reagent. It's just going to depend on kind of market viability and how quickly we can build that out.
Yeah. And can you, like, is it programmed to do certain tests more frequently than other ones, or will it automatically do all the tests, at the same time? Can you say, like, I want chlorine and pH and maybe alkalinity daily, and then it could do like calcium hardness once a month and upload it to the cloud?
Yeah, eventually we're going to build that sort of flexibility into the hardware. However, currently it does the pH, free chlorine, and alkalinity. It'll do pH and free chlorine 3 times a day, and then alkalinity it'll do once a day. Because the alkalinity, we actually literally do a titration. We, just like the alkalinity, you take the drops and you count how many drops it is before the color changes. We're actually literally doing that inside the Sutro. And so we just, because of that titration, we use up more of that reagent. So we have to deal that one a little bit slowly than we would the other two.
How long does the cartridge last?
So it lasts for 1 month. There's a total 90 shots inside there. And because we do 3 shots a day, we basically finish off a cartridge once a month. This battery that I had showed you actually charges inside of the hub and charger that's sitting inside your home. And so every month we will on demand mail you a cartridge. You toss the one that you have, it's actually recyclable. You put in the new one, you take the charged battery, put that in, close it back up and toss it in your pool.
Wow. And does that just float around freely in the pool? Goes in the skimmer basket? Where would it go? It
does float around freely. We have this little latch over here that you can actually latch it to a step. And it's pretty heavy duty. It's made out of actually aluminum and it has a screw on there. This is just our version 1. Version 2, we are looking at making an inline version of this thing to just take it outside of the pool. But that's probably going to come in kind of mid 2022. We're still working on the designs for that.
Wow. So I know we talked earlier about, pool stores, pool service technicians being scared of your product because they may feel that it's going to put them out of business. How do you stop that? Yeah,
Jim, actually, you want to take this one?
Yeah, and that's a really legitimate question from the industry, and they believe that technology will replace them. But as Ravi has kind of pointed out, because we check for these basic parameters up front, so pH and free chlorine and alkalinity, most technicians would agree that as long as those are in balance, they're in pretty good shape. But if we can give them the ability to see those things that move more frequently, they have the ability to react more frequently and more efficiently to what that individual pool is doing. But as Ravi also mentioned, we don't test for a lot of the other tests that can be run. So therefore, the technician still needs to go out at least on a regular basis to run a full battery of tests using a Taylor test kit or a Lamont spin touch or whatever methodology they've believed in and they use for their business. So it's an augmentation. It's actually the ability for them to use the technology to augment. And one of the biggest places where we found this value, not only with the service guys, but also with pool builders and pool applicators. You're talking about a pool that now needs 28 days of maintenance, really strong maintenance in order to ensure a good settling of the God, I'm drawing a blank on the thing and I do it all day. So it's coming out, but all the pool applicators that push out gunite and plaster, if those chemistries are not in line for the first 28 days, they're looking at warranty claims, and those warranty claims can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So everybody from the actual pool aggregate makers, the Pebble Techs, the Wet Edges, the SGMs, down to your builders, down to your pool applicators, are all looking at ways to mitigate those warranty claims. So when you talk about replacing them, we're actually showing them a way to reduce the overall exposure to warranty, but at the same time give their customer, when they're done, a much better way to manage this investment. And people now are spending $80,000 or $100,000 on pools. And it's not a pop-up pool that's, disposable. You're talking about a pretty significant investment for which most people that get them are not prepared, to take on. So we're literally now helping that industry reduce claims, make a better experience, and give them technology to help them do what they do better and do it more efficiently, and again, mitigate their warranty costs, which again, the customer just wants what they paid for, and nobody wants to have to go back out and replaster a pool due to poor water chemistry when it's something that could have been easily avoided. And if you look at any of those guys, the guys that make the product, their first usual paragraph in their warranty is all around water chemistry, especially during the 28-day cure period.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
So how do you guys work with the pool stores?
Yeah, so just talking to the pool store themselves here on the podcast, let's say, I first want to say that my dad used to have a chain of pool and spa supply stores, so I very much grew up in the industry. I understand the pain points, the kind of reasons and responsibilities of why a pool store exists and what also helps them make money. And so what we've actually built, for those of you that are on YouTube, you can see that I'm holding up here. And for those of you that are listening, this is the Lamont Spin Touch that I'm holding here in my right hand. In my left hand, I basically have this thing called the Spin Doctor, the Spin Dock. And so what it actually does is the Lamont Spin Touch docks inside of the Spin Doctor. And what this contraption does, as somebody that owns a pool spa supply store, is many of you test your customers' water using a Lamont Spin Touch. What we're able to do now is we're able to marry the data of what the customer brings into the pool store with the full suite of tests that the Lamont Spin Touch does, which obviously the Sutro does not, with the actual Sutro data that's floating inside of your swimming pool. So now if, Joe pool owner comes into Lauren's pool and spa supply, Lauren can run a test of Joe's water on the Lamont Spin Touch, and utilizing the Sutro Partners portal that we have, Lauren is able to see Joe's water in real time with the Sutro that's floating there while Joe's inside the pool store, with the added data that just came from the actual Spin Touch. And both of that combined and married data, Lauren now has a full picture of what's actually going on in Joe's pool and can make the necessary recommendations to Joe and potentially even sell him chemicals that would be more valuable to him than just getting only a space and time, which is what the Lamont does, with actually an entire time period, right? Because the Sutro collects information over a longer time period. So now what you're doing is you're getting this entire picture of what's happened over the last month with little blips of the actual Lamont Spin Touch data that give you more data in specific periods of time. And that only makes Lauren's pool and spa supply and Lauren smarter because she can sell more chemicals to Joe. She can figure out exactly what will help him better, and honestly give him better service and better treatment, right? And this is why we say Sutro's here to help the industry leverage forward, leverage better, because we build products like this, right? We put our money where our mouth is, and we say we're not here to take over the pool store's business. We want to drive Joe back into Lauren's pool and spa supply, and we have a product for Lauren's pool and spa supply to better also manage her relationship with Joe. And so that's kind of how we work with pool stores today. We are also potentially launching a beta version of this right now. So if any pool stores that are listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube that are interested, just email us at info@mysutro.com or hello@mysutro.com, and we will get you set up right away.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, and one of the things that the pool store has always been affected by is that they don't know the quality of the sample that they're actually getting. Because in markets like Florida, right, where somebody takes a reading at 7 o'clock in the morning with the intent to bring it to their pool store, it might sit in their car for the whole time they're at work. And we don't know if they put it in a contaminated pickle jar or whatever they're carrying it in, but who knows what's actually in that sample when it finally gets to the pool store. So they're trying to use that data to make recommendations based on potentially tainted data. And to Ravi's point, instead of just a snapshot in time, imagine if you could see that pool over time and have the ability to combine the two data points and to make the best possible recommendations. Because the samples that they get, unless somebody drives out and physically goes to the pool and takes a sample, that's the only way you're going to get it. But even the guys that I talked to, like in the National Plasterers Council, said we could stand next to each other at the same pool, take a test with the same kid at the same depth at the same time, and get different readings. And that's something that to me blows my mind, because people go out and rely on that data in order to make a decision versus, wait a minute, let's wait 8 hours and see, because we know that filtration and water pumps and fountains and other things can affect what that chemistry might look like. Depth in the water, things like in Florida, you got to, if you're not down 16 inches, you're going to get a lot more of that bleached out from the sun, in the top layers of the pool. So that's the real intent, is more data is the real benefit that we provide.
Well, and
the kind of last part I want to add to that is, Lauren, you might have gone to a pool store and get that piece of paper that's highlighted, and you like shove it in the bottom of your car and the guy forgets about it, right? All of these things happen when you leave that pool store. What we've built as part of the Sutra Partners Portal, with everything that Jim just said, and part of marrying those actual two data streams together of your Spin Touch and your Sutro, is we've implemented text messaging and emailing. So straight from your portal that you have with that test information, you at Lauren's Pool and Spa Supply can just send a text message straight to Joe's phone. So there's no pieces of paper, there's no highlights.
Nice.
He has it on his cell phone. When he goes home, he knows exactly how much BioGuard shock to add. He knows exactly how much HTH, acid pH up to add. And as Lauren's Pool and Spa Supply, you're also loyal to a particular chemical brand. And so Sutro also works with all chemical brands. So if you are a particular BioGuard dealer, if you're a Hasa dealer, we'll upload all those chemicals for you. And you can run as your business has been running. We're not here to force you into any sort of chemicals. We want you to sell the chemicals that you sell best and have been selling. Yeah. And it's all done via text message. So now there's no more papers being lost, no more Joe calling back up and saying, hey, Lauren, I lost my piece of paper. What'd you write? And you're trying to figure out in your computer where you're supposed to go. He has everything on his phone and he knows what to do next.
And that chemical business is so important to the retailer. It represents about 30% of their business volume for profit. And unfortunately, as soon as that customer gets in their car and goes home, they're bombarded by the e-com messages, especially in the COVID world. Amazon and eBay and everybody else is just pumping out, oh, chlorine is on eBay or is on Amazon. So the customer goes, chlorine is chlorine. But if it's already done for them in a nice package that says, look, add 3 cups of GLB or Leisure Time or whatever your affinity was. Look, I don't have that yo-yo in my pool anymore, and I don't have to go back a week later because my chemistry is out of whack because I didn't know how much of what to put in. All that guesswork, all that human error in, just because I look at my test kit and it says some color of red, what does that mean when it translates into how much do I put in now to create really that healthy and balanced pool, which if you cut all to the chase at the end of the day, that's all somebody really wants, is a healthy and balanced pool for their family to swim in. That's it. They don't want to have a chemistry lesson. They don't want to know about any of this stuff. Just tell me what I have to do to make it so my kids can swim without coming out with, red eyes or, irritations on your skin and things like that.
I mean, it's so cool how we're talking about it. It just brings me back to, years ago doing science fair projects with my kids. And so many parents that don't understand about data. The teachers will say, you got to do more than one trial. The more trials you do, the better your data is for your science fair experiment. And they teach our kids how real science works. So the data you're collecting is the same thing. You're testing that it's testing 3 times a day, plus whatever they bring in. And it hits home with me. Yes, we would get water samples at our health department, people for well water testing, where it wasn't in the right container. How long we would say it has to be on ice, but they bring it in and it's not. How long has it sat in their car? We wouldn't accept it because we couldn't say that we would get proper results. You got to bring it in the right way. So coming into a pool store, and they have whatever XYZ they collected when they probably did in the morning, they went to work and they don't know. They're not scientists. They don't know it shouldn't stay in their car all day and it's going to change things. So then they go to on their way home from work, they stop at Lauren's Pool and Supply Store. I love it, Ravi. And now you're going to see it when you run that versus what the 3 readings for the day were. And you're going to know this data set, just like you do science fair experiments, sometimes you have a data set that's just completely off. Yes, it's included in there, but you're going to try to figure out why it was. And here you could probably figure it out. It may make you question, what did you do with this water sample? The pool store can ask, because it's completely different than what your reading was 2 hours ago that the Sutro took floating around that I have in the cloud. So it even brings questions up that the pool store will be able to ask, having more information.
Well, we also used to get people that would come in and their pH, they don't realize that their pH can fluctuate just by having a fountain or having a bottle of water that's pouring into their pool from their spa, which has a different temperature than what it's coming into the pool at. So they would take that reading, and their pH might be something, but an hour later it jumped up because and with Sutro, you'll actually see the spike at 4 o'clock when that fountain goes on, because they'll say, well, geez, why does my pH spike every day at 4 o'clock? Well, now I know if I took my readings every day at 4 o'clock, it's going to be a different chemistry than it is at 2 o'clock. So you have to have those data points, or else you're going to over chemicalize or under chemicalize that pool.
Right.
And we don't want to have to do that. We want to be able to provide that safe, healthy, and balanced, experience. Is what the ultimate game is over time, not just a snapshot in time.
Right. And everybody knows how important water balance is. There's a lot of texts that do target chemistry, but water balance is overall the king of it, knowing if your water is corrosive or scaling. But the first thing you got to be able to do is properly and accurately test your water first before you can even get to is your water balanced or not. So we're talking about accurately and more frequently getting data for water testing, so that then you can make better decisions on your water balance, which is then going to affect your pool surface, your salt chlorine generators and how they work. So ultimately, it's not directly adding chemicals, but it makes what your decisions are going to be on adding a whole different answer.
Yeah, and think about that. We hadn't actually gone that far, but not only are you affecting the pool finish, right, which is a part of the pool finish process, when you start getting discoloration in your pebbles and other things that happen over time because you're over chemicalized. But imagine what else is going on within the filter, the heaters, where you've got calcification within the heater. People wonder why their heaters fail. When you look at them, it had nothing to do with the heater itself. It had to do with the water chemistry. And why did my filters all corroded? Or why is my pipes all clogged up? And why is my PSI running really high? All kinds of things are affected by water chemistry that people just don't even take into consideration in the overall maintenance.
Right. And so many people take the actual water testing, and they don't really hone in on it. You cannot do water balance unless you accurately test the water first, because the readings you get there is what you decide what you're going to do over here. Yeah. It makes the decisions that you're going to end up doing.
And most people go out and give it the visual test. Oh, it looks good. Oh, I'm standing. Oh, hey, I'm not going to shock this week because my pool looks beautiful. But they don't realize there's an ecosystem going on underneath the surface that they're not even aware of, that's changing, and they don't even know what to do about what's happening, and they don't see it.
Well, I'm going to throw that myth out. I'm going to throw that myth out real quick. There are lots of public pools down here in Florida I walked up to that were clear as a bell, but they tested at 0 chlorine. Probably not long enough with no chlorine to have algae yet, but you still risk recreational water illnesses once there's 0 disinfectant in that water. So it's clear. It looks perfectly great. Sometimes it starts getting that, what I call the fuzzy look to it, but don't ever walk up to a pool and think you can eye test it. And they also had that misconception of the fact that if you smell chlorine, that's actually a good thing. When in fact, I learned it's actually a bad thing if you can actually smell the chlorine. Yeah. It's high.
So a lot of those myths chlorine are out there. And it's a lot of those myths that are out there that people have adhered to for so long in the form of water chemistry. And what's scary is that they're investing $80,000, $100,000 into this pool that has a lifespan of a lifetime, as long as they take care of it, but don't have the education to understand how to do it. So they give it to the hands of a service guy. or they put it in the hands of somebody else to take care of it. And now our job is to help either the homeowner or the service techs take care of that investment over the life of that pool.
Yes. All right. Yeah. How can a new pool owner or pool builder work with Sutro?
Jim, you want to take that one? Actually,
yep. And I think we covered that a little bit because the pool owner, the pool builders and the pool finish companies now, as I said, have huge exposure in that warranty period. Okay. New plaster, new gunite. I can tell you that more and more service companies are taking on the responsibilities of startup pools. And we have several partners that we've talked to from all three of that, from service, pool finish, and pool builders, that actually said, look, the startup thing is the most crucial, I think it was one of the biggest topics at the National Plasters Council this year. And I sat through a few webinars of what can happen if you don't monitor that water chemistry. It's pretty ugly what happens to the finishes. And then they have to go out and drain it and scrape it and then refinish it again, which costs money, time, and reputation. So we believe this is if anything else, that market for us has been a huge opportunity because they're trying to find the solution. There's guys out there trying to use older technology, but they got to get in their truck and drive 100 miles to run a test that takes them 30 seconds when they could have had that data done from their office and decided when they wanted to drive and save those monies and efficiencies. So it's a huge opportunity for builders, pool finish, and applicators, as well as now the service techs, to take advantage of technology to mitigate their exposure. And from what I hear, there's a lot of finger pointing going on when warranty claims do come. So it's not me, it's the customer, it's not the customer, it's the builder, it's not the builder, it's the pool finish guy. And at the end of the day, somebody ends up having to come up with the dollars to fix that situation. And it represents hundreds of thousands of dollars to the pool industry.
Are any patents for Sutro?
Yeah, we actually have patents filed on the microfluidics. We have actually them filed globally. So US, Canada, Australia, all the major markets. So if anybody wanted to, basically try to copy us, like you said earlier, right? Everybody just tries to copy and paste and compete with each other. We wanted to make sure that, we kind of we're protected in that realm because we want to make sure that we can scale the technology without somebody coming in and kind of stepping on our feet off the bat. And so the microfluidics technology, anybody taking reagent-based technology and basically creating a robot out of it is what we generally have patented.
Awesome. And this is going to more on the public pool side. So I see that this could really work really well in some of those areas where they have regulatory authorities that require like daily testing, and some of them even require more than daily testing, like twice a day, 3 times a day. I know personally in Florida, it's once a day. They want the daily. And when I was working there, that was one of the biggest complaints was we have a pool company that comes out 2 or 3 days a week. Like we really can't afford, we're a condo owners association, really can't afford a pool company coming out every day to manually test the pool, but the health department says it's required. And then they don't really understand if they do have somebody in the condo board that goes out and tests it. They have a tailored test kit. They go test chlorine and pH levels. They write it down, but they don't really know what they're looking for, what it means. So I could see this really being good for that market for that reason, because it's testing the water, uploads it. It could go directly to the pool company, the pool operator, instead of having somebody on the condo board testing it, doesn't know what it means. Even if it went to their phone, they know totally what it meant. So the big thing for regulatory authorities with a piece of equipment in the equipment area testing the water would be NSF standard 50 certification. Is that something you guys are working on so that this could be applied to the public pool market at some point?
Yeah, so one of the things that we want to do next is actually apply for NSF and ANSI 50. And I think when we were talking earlier, Lauren, you said the kind of main points of that regulation are that you need to, one, use DPD-based testing. You need to measure the chlorine, and therefore ORP does not work for commercial settings. And the second thing is you need to have logs of what you're measuring and what you've done to basically treat the water. Sutro checks off both of those buckets, right? We're not an ORP sensor. We actually use DPD. So in theory, we're a photometric sensor that measures the water 3 times a day as programmed, right? I want to say as programmed because for commercial settings, if you're in California, some cities in California might need you to test every 2 hours. That's fine. For us, it's just a software change, right? We don't do this for everybody, but as we start to roll out the commercial applications, and if there's a city in California that needs it every 2 hours, we'll just change the software, right? We'll have a toggle on there that says, set your times of testing between the hours of 9 to 5, test every 2 hours, upload the data to the cloud, and send me an email once a day with all the data points inside of an email of what people have done. Boom, we can do that, right? That's not a problem for us. And so in that sense, when you look at the aquatic health codes in that matter, and these 2 data points of DPD chlorine-based testing and measurements done at a particular frequency, we encapsulate that whole package. All we need to really get now is the NSF and ANSI 50, and that's on our roadmap.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. I think that'll check off the box in that one area for public pools that's been bringing the technology in to be able to do that. And it will really solve a lot of problems, especially like down here in Florida, people are retired. So they don't want to be out there testing the pool. If there's equipment that could do it for them, most likely they would consider putting it on to satisfy the daily testing requirements. It's something they would consider, I think. So,
and I think one of the other caveats to that is that, again, I think, Lauren, you mentioned, you don't know what they're actually putting in the logs. They might just copy what was written before them. A lot of the states that I work with, get soggy logs that the lifeguards have filled in. Maybe they filled in all the data. Maybe the guy just copied what was written above and just changed the time. But are they really interpreting the color variations differently inside a pool, the color, the light differences? Are we truly getting what the human eye is seeing versus what the photometry is supposed to bring? So I get that all the time. Lifeguards are supposed to take the test. They don't 3-4 times a day. The logs are a mess. They can't keep track versus a nice historical graph that is both consistent and is, of course, done through scientific technology, not human variance that greatly affects what you do. Because remember, a lot of those ORP sensors then turn around and put chlorine in automatically. So you're not regulating. That ORP sensor is determining how much chlorine is put into that pool. And if it's an outdoor pool with CYA buildup, that ORP sensor starts to see less sensitivity and increases that loop, into putting more chlorine into that pool. So that's why ORP, I think is a solution that Sutra will eventually just replace from an accuracy and consistency standpoint.
And I can relate to the daily chemical log listeners that are pool service techs that know this happens. They're going to nod their head when they listen to this podcast episode, especially for public pools. I'd go out and, look at, there'd be 6 months of chemical logs for chlorine and pH readings on the clipboard. And every day the chlorine's a 5, and every day that they're there, the pH is a 7.4, no variations in 6 months. And they're only writing 3 days a week. So of course they're not doing the daily testing's not being recorded, but I'm like, yeah, right. So yes, this would totally take that out of the picture, because now you're going to get the real data and you're going to see the variations, because that's what really happens in water chemistry, guys.
Yep.
That's listening. I know these guys know, but the people listening, variations happen. Health inspector's going to know if you're writing the same thing down every day.
Right. Yeah, and as Ravi mentioned too, because our technology is expandable, we'll eventually have it built in at the pool pad, so you'll have the capabilities of not having to need the floater, which is probably one of the biggest commercial obstacles to us right now. Right, it's the floating aspect. Somebody's going to steal it or get hurt while it's floating in a pool. But remembering that cartridge can be expanded to take whatever tests of whatever battery of tests they want to take. So we could be running monthly tests with a certain cartridge, or we could be running the daily tests with cartridge A or B. So you can see the expandability here for Sutro is to give you exactly what they need when they need it, and have the ability to be flexible enough to take any and all tests that are required for each. And all, as you know, each individual state is different. So we could have different variances for each one.
Yep. Well, this has been so awesome to talk to you guys about. This is such cool technology that I learned something about it today. When I talked to Jim originally, I just couldn't like envision everything about it. So now I know all about it and how it works. And I hope everybody listening has enjoyed this podcast episode as well. And I thank you so much for being on today, guys.
No, it's our pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for diving in today with the Let's Talk About Pools podcast. Be sure to follow us on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. And feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts so more aquatic professionals like you can learn about the show. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Let's Talk About Pools podcast.